Okay, now we have this problem. So these are just going to be numbers, and we know how to get those numbers. Make sure you do know how to get these numbers. If you know A, B, and C, then these numbers are going to be in order: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Each one's going to be bigger than the one before. A, B, and C are in order. So if you multiply, or if you add A and B, you're going to get the smallest number that you can get from just A, B, and C, okay? So you add the two smallest numbers of A, B, and C, and that's your D, okay? Then you add the next two smallest, which would be the smallest and the biggest, okay? That's E. Then you add the two biggest, that's F. Those numbers are always going to be in order. And then you add G, add the 3, and you get G. Of course, that's going to be bigger than anything you can get just adding 2. Try to remember that scheme, and then all you got to remember is A, B, C, and you know what to do. Okay, so anyhow, you do this. Then graph the line. Now, what do you do to find the X and Y intercepts? Well, I gave you a late hint because a lot of people were not able to find intercepts. The X-intercept occurs when Y equals 0. That's one of the big things we emphasized in class last night. And of course, that's what open math tells you. Somehow, that didn't come through for some others, most of them. So we talk about how you need to take notes on what you did in open math, get the principles, and again, go back and work a practice set and make sure you're able to get the right answers without having to look at anything. Because the tendency is in open math, you got a video, you just blindly follow what the video does without anything sinking in. Don't let that happen. And the way you find out that nothing sank in is you go back and you can't work the problems. Well, you go back, you work, and you look at the videos, and you pick up what you should have picked up in the first place if you'd have done everything right. Okay? Now, it's hard to do that. You got to practice doing that. Your feedback comes when you can't do a practice set without looking at something. Okay? Because when you test or when you're in a pre-calculus class, you can't always go back and look at things up. You never get done. It takes you forever. Okay? And you never learn it. And you never pass the test. Okay? So don't be in that situation. Do what's necessary. Okay, so lay him. The X-intercept occurs when Y equals 0. It's the primary thing you have to know about this section. Okay? Got out of the section and didn't understand that that was the big thing. Everything else is easy if you know that. If you practice it. Okay, and then the Y-intercept occurs when X is okay? And look at the next slide. Try to make it look worse. Okay, there we go. Now, if you have that principle, this is a big deal. Okay, so now let's say my equation is 8x minus 10y equals 400. Just to use easy numbers. But whatever your numbers are, the way I've set this up, whatever number you have here is going to divide evenly into this. And whatever number here is going to divide evenly into this. Because that was really clever. That's pretty obvious to me. If you multiply A by C by D, it's going to be divisible by C, isn't it? Okay. And if you multiply A by C by D, it's going to be divisible by D. So if you did your arithmetic right and used your numbers correctly, whatever numbers you happen to have, that'll work. Okay, and then what you have to deal with fractions. Okay, so find x-intercept. This is really simple. So you let y equal 0. Then 8x minus 10 times 0 equals 400. Okay. Now what's 8x minus 10 times 0? Well, that's 8x minus 0 equals 400. The only thing that changes between here and here is I multiplied 10 by 0 and got 0. There's no surprise about that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that 8x minus 0 is just 8x. Because you add or subtract 0 from a number or to a number, it isn't going to change. So whatever number 8x is, 8x minus 0 is going to be that number. Okay. Now, then to get this, we don't subtract 8 from both sides because 8x minus 8 is not just x. 8x divided by 8 is x. We divide this by 8 to get x. And of course, we can't divide just this side. We did that. We have to divide this side. Okay. But then that thing with the meter stick and the dominoes. I think we did. Okay. I think I did that both in here and in the support course. Didn't do it in the pre-calculus course. Okay, so that is 8x divided by 8. The reason 8x divided by 8 is x is because of the way fractions work. There are other reasons we could use it, but we say that that's the same as 8 over 8 times x over 1. Now I write it out this way because if you think you could subtract 8 from both sides and get rid of that 8, you're not thinking about what goes on here, okay? There's a reason here, and if you understand this reason, everything's much easier. 8 divided by 8 is 1. That's times x over 1, and that equals 50. And of course, x divided by 1 is x, and 1 times x is x. So we get x equals 50, so that the y-intercept the x-intercept see how easy it is to get confused, write something down wrong if you're not checking yourself? Okay. I'm not pretending, I'm really doing these dumb things. Okay, x-intercept is 50, 0. Because we let y equal 0 at the beginning. Y is 0 in all this. And the consequence of y equals 0 is, well, you just plug it into the equation. You see the consequence is x has to be 50. And now let's just check. If we plug in 50 for x, that's going to be 8 times 50, right? And we plug in 0 for y, we're going to get 10 times 0. Okay, that's going to be 50 minus 0 equals 400. 8 times 50 minus 0 equals 400. 8 times 50 is 400. 400 minus 0 is 400. These coordinates satisfy the equation. So now we know that there's a point on the graph. Now let's start constructing the graph. I'm going to just keep working this way. Okay, so here's going to be our graph. I'm going to draw it pretty big because I want to do something. Okay, the x-intercept is 50, 0. I'm going to put a big mark here and say that this point is I need to give you all things to throw at me when I do dumb things that will help condition me. X-intercepts on the x-axis, right? The x-intercept is 50, 0. X is here, and y is here. So we put a point here, and we say that's the x-intercept. (50) Now I've got my scale here. You know, I might as well go ahead and mark off the scale. Here's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay. Now we're going to do the y-intercept. And I'm going to be able to do the y-intercept up here because I left us plenty of room up here. The y-intercept is going to end up being negative axis here. The y-intercept x equals 0. So now our equation is 8 times 0 minus 10y equals 400. Okay, well that comes out negative 10y equals 400. 3 dots, y equals negative 40. And I didn't go through all the details of solving this equation, but you need to review solving linear equations and make sure you understand the logic of every step, okay? Explain the logic here, it's very similar here. Okay, so now the y-intercept is negative 40, 0. So we'll put something down here at negative 40. Whatever we want to put negative 40 is okay. If we put it in kind of the same scale we have x, there's some advantages. So this is the y-intercept. X is 0, x is 0, and it follows that y is negative 40. So there it is. And now we simply draw. It should have been a straight line through the points, but I'm a little low. Okay, there we got it. We understand now that this is the equation. So this is the line. It corresponds to (8x minus 10y equals 40). Well, what are we going to do with that line? We're going to start analyzing it because there are 3 assignments coming up for Monday on straight lines. Okay, we've got to go over quite a bit of material here. It's difficult to go over, to ask for more than one assignment between Monday and Wednesday because I know you're busy. Okay, which is why then it could be as many as 3 assignments. There were actually 4, but I moved one. Okay. So there's quite a bit, but let me give you the overview. And again, remember, we're still in elementary algebra now. Next week, we'll actually start getting into intermediate algebra. Okay. If you understand the elementary algebra well, intermediate algebra isn't that bad. Okay, now, let me ask you, Okay, so slope is rise over run. Get from x equals 0 to 50. Yeah, hang on, we got a question. Okay, that's good. So yeah, we had a really good question. Well, a really good comment. Yeah, somebody's a step ahead of what I'm saying. Says, okay, if you're going up, the rise is positive. If you're going down, it'd be negative. Yeah, good observation. That's good. Or if you're going to the right, it's positive. If you're going to the left, it's negative. Also good. Okay, that's exactly what you want to understand. So make sure everybody understands that. That's very good. Okay, the run is from 0 to 50, that's 50. So I'm going to say, I'm going to label it here. Here's your run. And I'm going to say that's 50 minus 0. Okay. Because to get how far you run, you subtract where you started from where you ended. If you're going up the interstate, you go from mile 20 to mile 40. Then you went up 20 miles. That's a plus 20 miles, right? What arithmetic do you do to get that? You do 40 minus 20, not 20 minus 40. Okay. Now, if you went from 40 to 20, then you do 20 minus 40 and get negative 20 miles in the negative direction. Okay, your miles are decreasing. Okay, so that's really important concept. You want to try to remember that. And the rise equals, it's obviously 40, but I'm going to say it's where you end up. Well, it's the y-coordinate. The y-coordinate tells you how far up or down you are. It's going to be 0 minus negative 40. That's the calculation. That's obvious that you go up 40, but it's not always going to be obvious what you do, especially when you get these negative numbers. Okay, so it's obvious looking at this that the run goes from negative 40 to 0, and that's plus 40. And generally, we do want to have a decimal number that gives this, okay? Now that reduces to 4/5. You can write it as 4/5. Okay, that's exact. And 0.8 is also exact since 50 to the 40, exactly 0.8 times. Okay, so I do a thing with graph where I complete this triangle. I call this a fundamental triangle. It's got the run, it's got the rise, it's got a hypotenuse. Okay, hypotenuse is a long side. And I put .8 here with a box around it. And now I can just read what the run is, what the rise is, and what the slope is. I don't have to look at a bunch of writing that might be scattered all over the page if you organize things as badly as I do. And some of you, actually, you all organize things pretty well. But I've got people in pre-calculus, man, their work is scattered everywhere, but they get it. Okay. Takes me a while to find it, but I get it. And I keep telling you, try to organize it a little better. Eventually somebody besides me is going to need to read what you're writing then. Okay. So anyhow, even if your work is organized, you got to read a lot of stuff to see what your rise and run are. If you come back to this 2 days later, if you got this picture, you can see exactly. That's all you need. You wouldn't do the writing, but you want to have everything in a nice, concise picture. Okay. Now let's do an estimate. And using my graph, just visually estimate. There's a lot of stuff here, it's cluttered, so you're not going to get a great estimate. But estimate what the point on the graph is when x equals 30. Now, some people have a little trouble with this. You know, the x coordinate can be found just by drawing a projection line. I kind of missed, but you see that it's between 10 and 20, right? X coordinates between 10 and 20. And my lines are a little to the right. I'd say it's about 12 or 13 according to that, but a lot of people had 15. That's fine. Okay, just said something, you know, you should probably see that it's between 10 and 20. Any number between 10 and 20, and I'd be fine with it. Okay, especially since some of you are looking for that. Now, the y coordinate. You'd have to, you know, you're looking at the board, you'd have to kind of visualize these straight lines. But the y coordinate here, we're a lot closer to -40 than we are to 0, right? Okay, so a lot of you estimated -30, and pretty much what it looks like to me too. Okay, so what do I label this? I'll just go ahead and say 15 -30. Right there. Okay. Now my question is, what's the y coordinate? Well, let's not do that. Let's just say, okay, plug in 15 and -30. Remember, our equation is 8x minus 10y equals 40. So if you plug in 15 for x and -30 for y, you get something close to 30 or 40. And it's not 40, it's 400. So calculate it. If x is 15 and y is -30, what do you get? Well, I think it's going to come out a little high. And I think maybe this should have been closer to 12. But let's just see what you get. The estimated coordinates of a point on the graph are 15 -30. Plug into the equations, plug those numbers in, write the equation you get. Then if you got time, evaluate it. Okay, that's very important. We're plugging these numbers into the equation. This is x and this is y. Okay. Well, the equation is what? That's the equation we've been working on all along. As I told people, they're trying to plug these numbers into their equation. You say, no, no, I'm being really generous, letting you use my equation. So use my equation, which was 8x minus 10y equals 400. Because that's the equation that gave us this line. It's 8x minus 10y equals 400. Bad looking x. Okay, that means this is x. It's going to go in there where x is. So we're going to write 8 times 15 minus 10y. Y is negative 30. Here's what we've got. Now we just do the arithmetic. 8 times 15 is 120. 10 times negative 30 is negative 300. So we have minus negative 300 equals 400. And then that gives us 120 plus 300 equals 400. Okay. And then that tells us that 420 equals 400. It's not so, but it's close. And our conclusion is that the point 15 negative 30 is pretty close to this line, but it's not exactly on it. We can't expect when you draw a random point on the line and take an estimate, especially from back there where you all are, okay, that you're going to come out that close. Now, if I'd have done this accurately, I said 12 would have worked. 12 would have been even better. 12 would have given me 396 equals 400. Would have been pretty close, but I'm not going to get correct, okay? I usually wouldn't get that close from a hand-drawn graph, especially one where my line ran just a little bit low. Okay. Now, what I'm asking you to do is, where's the point on the graph where x equals 30? I'm going to ask you to find the point where x equals 30 and estimate its coordinates. Find the point where x equals 30 and estimate its y coordinate. Okay, still have a little trouble here. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just raise your hand quickly when my finger gets to the point where x equals 30. Okay, now if you got a decent estimate, which half of you did, just let everybody else answer, okay? So that if you raise your hand and you know where it is, everybody else is going to raise their hand because they trust you. The fools. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so just raise your hand when we get to where x, you think x equals 30 here? If you were to estimate, x isn't 30 here, we determined that x is about 15 here. And that was the estimates. We got to go further to get to where x equals 30, right? Now, what you got is y was negative 30 here, which is probably what you were thinking. But x isn't 30 here, y is. But it's not 30, it's negative 30. Okay, so not bad. You knew what that point was. Okay. Okay, so again, we're going to keep moving. Actually, tell me this way. Point right or left if I need to go further to the right, and this way if I need to go further to the left, okay? So here we go. Okay, see, different people have a different picture. And of course, some of you are sitting pretty far back. So the difference between here and here is not significant. Okay, and you wanted to be accurate, and that was great. Okay, so yeah, the point is about here. So when I ask you, find the point where x equals 30 and estimate its y coordinate, you got to locate that point. I'll use a different color here. What haven't I used? I'll use green. Okay, here's the point. Where x equals 30. Right? So write down what you think the y coordinate is there.
And it's still
hold up. Okay. So where x equals 30 is here. So if we project upward, that looks more like 31 where I drew it, but that's just where I drew it. And then we project over here. And here's the line where people say x equals negative or y equals negative 20. And I'm real good with that answer. Okay. I think it's going to come out pretty close. But most people estimated negative 20. Okay, so the estimate was the y coordinates negative 20. So we have the point 30, negative 20. We plug those numbers in. And we get 8x, which is 8 times 30, minus 10y, which is 10 times negative 20, equals 400. Well, that's actually not going to come out all that close. That's going to be 240 plus 200 equals 400. 440 equals 400. That's not bad for an eyeball estimate from out there in the, in the stadium. So we get 400 equals 440. It's pretty close. Now let's find out what x really has to be, or what y really has to be if x equals 20. Okay. So we plug in x equals 30 and solve for y. What's that mean? Write out the equation. The equation is, as it always has been, here it is 8x minus 10y equals 400. Here it is on the graph. Might be hard to read if you're sitting far away. So I'm going to write the equation for you. 8x minus 10y equals 400. I'm sure you've got it written down. There it is for convenience. Change x to 30. And then you have an equation you can easily solve for y. Okay, we're pretty good here. So we plug in x equals 30, and we get yes, all we've done is we changed x to 30. And then we're going to be able to solve for y if we do all the steps correctly. Well, 8 times 30 is 240. Now we haven't done anything to this side. We haven't done anything to this side except just multiply 8 by 30. So we replace 8 times 30 by 240. We haven't changed anything. We've just done a little bit of arithmetic. Now we got to start to change things. So we want the y's on this side and the x's on this side. We're going to do 240 minus 10y minus 240. And of course, if we subtract 240 here, we got to subtract 240 here. Okay, if I take 2 dominoes off here, I better take 2 dominoes off here. Okay, or 240 dominoes. I'm not going to try to stack that, but get the idea. So we get negative 10y equals 160. Now what do? Well, we do negative 10y divided by negative 10 equals 160 divided by negative 10. And a couple of dots here, we've got to be careful that we understand what we're doing, but that's going to give us y equals negative 16 when we do the arithmetic. Okay, so your estimates were everybody pretty much estimated negative 20, and I was good with that estimate. Looked pretty good to me. I see that my dotted line here was going a little bit downhill over here, but it could have gone up a little higher. I might have still estimated 20. Okay. Partly because remember that my line, when I drew it, came out a little bit low here. So that's going to tend to make my estimate a little bit low. Negative 20 is lower than negative 16. Well, that's how we can use the straight line if we know its equation. And we're out of time, but the assignments now, I'm a little floppy about these assignments because we're having a lot of trouble with the elementary algebra here, and it's nobody's fault. This is where you need to be. If I delay these assignments, then the intermediate algebra is going to bunch up on us, and we're not going to get over that hump. So I'm probably going to keep the assignment where it is and hope open math helps you get through it. We've seen a lot about the equation of a straight line, except how do you get the equation if you know 2 points? And if they're not the intercepts, they're going to give you some formulas. We'll talk more about the meaning of the formulas. It's going to be, it's going to take you some time, but there's no way around that. And I think, I could give you reference to some videos I did last semester. You've got the open math videos. Since it's not live, if you watch the video, I think we're going to stick with just the open math. I don't want to confuse you with a bunch of information that's given with a little different focus than what open math gives you, okay? So see how you can do. Do your best. And I'll probably give you an extension on the assignment after you've done it, but you've got to do it first. So do your best, learn as much as you can about it, and hopefully you'll be in good shape to talk about it when we come in next week. Okay?